Hello and welcome to the Meeple Minded. My name is Jason and today we are finally checking out Comic Hunters by Spin Master Games. I'm super excited about this, so let's dive straight in. In Comic Hunters, you and your fellow players are Marvel comic book collectors searching for those golden nuggets that still elude your impressive collection. Throughout the game, you'll be attending the local stores, flea markets, conventions, and even online auction sites to try and get those valued printed works of arts to complete your collection. The components in this game, I'm afraid to say, are a bit of a mixed bag. Of course, let's start with the good stuff, which is of course the officially licensed replicas of real comic book covers used as the card art. This is nicely applied to the cards with what comes across as good print quality. The cards themselves don't appear to have a linen finish, but there is some form of texture to the card. The game board is also nicely laid out and is not that big of a table hog. In fact, quite the opposite, it's quite a small board. But I must say, the folds feel a tad messy and could be better engineered at design level. And then that leads me to talk about the worst part of the components for me, the tokens. The tokens are some of the worst quality I think I've seen in a game since I bought a £5 Disney game from my local supermarket purely to get the miniatures to paint. They are, to start with, very small and very fiddly, which I understand is by necessity, but coupled with the fact that they are stupidly thin and not even made of standard punchboard or even thick cardstock at that fact, makes them susceptible to bending. And when removing from the punchboard, the artwork was not properly cut and it was trying to rip away. The gameplay uses a range of drafting mechanisms for players to gain comics, with the somewhat unique idea that you go through 3 drafts to gain lots of comics, which you then have to add to your collection. But you also must pay the cost of those comics using the other comics you have drafted. So in essence, during the drafting phase, you're looking for comics you want, but also comics that you need to pay for the comics that you want. The 4 types of drafting in the game range from your basic take one and pass it on, a push your luck infused draft where you either add a card to a row or claim a row, a bidding frenzy where you choose a row and bid using a set amount of cash reserves to try and outbid other players, and also my favourite one, which involves choosing a hero and claiming all the cards in a single row or column. With each of the 3 rounds in a game containing just 3 of the 4 drafting types, this keeps players on their toes and ever alert for the cards that they need to get a good collection going that will maximise points at the end of the game. Speaking about points at the end of the game, points at the end of the game are awarded based on collection sizes of the heroes that you have, the number of special editions within those collections, and the variety of heroes included in your collection haul. Okay guys, so the summary for this one is going to be a tough one for me, and I'm just going to say it up front. Full disclosure, I have been waiting and trying to get this game since I first heard about it nearly 3 years ago. So if you want to class me as biased towards the game, maybe you're right. However, I can tell you there are some negatives for this game that I am going to talk about. But first off, let's talk about the gameplay, because that is great fun, and the different forms of drafting really adds some excitement to the gameplay. I think for me, as I said earlier, my favourite is the convention draft, where you get that nice mix of all 3 generations of comics being available, and also being able to somewhat manipulate the rows and columns by being permitted to move 1 card, with restrictions in place, of course. But it's a really interesting concept where you get to manipulate it, you pick a character, and then you take all of that character within a row or a column. I like that. The next thing I want to talk about is the choice to have no actual money within the game. I feel that is a great call and helps to really evoke the theme of comic trading to gain bigger and better collections. You know, the only time that you're really dealing with anything that could have been money is the online auctions, you know, and the theme of the game really is that you've got a surplus collection of comics which you're trading away in order to get those. It could easily be money. I think I referred to it as money earlier, but it's not money, you're trading comics. But, you know, I really like that. I think taking away money from the game just really does help with that theme of being a comic trader. So I really like that. There are challenging choices to make within the set collections as well, as you will be gaining points based on the collection sizes, special prints, as well as the variety. So you could go all in on making a massive Spider-Man collection, but for you to win, that might be a tough fight against someone who has smaller collections of various different characters that also contains loads of first print comics, you know, so they're going to be gaining money, or gaining points, should I say, from their first prints, their special editions, and the fact that they've got lots of different characters, while you're going to be gaining points from having just 1 character but lots of that character. So guys, now I do have to bring it back down just a little bit and talk about some of those negatives that I alluded to earlier. And we've already talked about it a little bit in the component quality, right? The components really did let the game down for me in this instance. You know, those tokens, they really are quite bad, very fiddly, very, very flimsy. And I'll be honest, it's going to be the first upgrade I'm going to make to my copy, is I'm going to be finding a way to replace those tokens. Be it upgrading those tokens or maybe 3D printing some tokens, I'm not quite sure yet, but I can tell you it's going to happen very soon, because already the tokens within my copy have started to peel away, they've started to bend, they're just not looking that great. And yeah, I've played the game a fair bit, but it's less than a month, less than 2 months, whatever it is, since I got the game. And yet we're already looking at damage here. So yeah, I think the tokens in the game are pretty terrible. The card stock that they use for the cards, being the fact that this is primarily a card game, it's alright, it's not bad, it's pretty average. They're not linen finish or anything like that. As I said, they've got a little bit of a texture to them, but they're quite thin and they bend quite easily. I did notice that. So I actually sleeved mine before my first play, so that's going to bring some longevity to the cards here. But yeah, the card stocks, it's okay. It's pretty average, right? The rulebook has, in my opinion, suffered as well with a translation issue. It has been translated over into English for the American release, and I think some parts have suffered for that. Some parts are very unclear as to what needs to be done, and there have also been some evidences of rule changes that have been implemented as well, but they haven't been clarified and changed in all parts of the rulebook, or indeed the main game board. One that just sticks in my head, for example, is when it's referring to a collection size. You know, when you're placing characters down, a collection is 2 cards. You can't just put down a single card. And I believe in the original version, even on the game board, it specifies for the the points at the end with the variation, it actually signifies 3 cards. So you're not going to score points unless you've got a minimum of 3 cards. However, in the American one, it says 2, but in the rulebook, it still says 3. It contradicts what you've read earlier on in the rulebook. So there's a few instances where the translation or game changes have been made that haven't really been sorted out properly. That being said, though, in all the games I have played of this game to date, players have understood the rules very easily, and gameplay has progressed at a decent pace, which is great, because this isn't like a hugely long game. It says 60 minutes on the box. I think we've been playing games in half an hour, 45 minutes, even with the teach. So I think this game is pretty good. I would use it as a warm-up game. It's not going to be your main event of the evening, but yeah, I think the speed that the game is played, and more importantly, and this was one that I definitely did notice, was every game we've played, the scores have tended to be very, very close indeed, making me feel that all the paths that are available to you within the game are a valid strategy to win. And more importantly, they are balanced. Or at least more balanced than a heroes versus villain fight in your average Marvel comic. Thank you guys very, very much for joining me here this week. If you have enjoyed what you have been seeing, of course, we have to ask you to do those typical YouTube algorithm things. So if you have enjoyed it, like the video, share the video, leave a comment down below, and of course, the most important one, subscribe to the channel to not miss any more tabletop gaming content from us here at The Meeple Minded. But until next time, I have been Jason, you have been watching The Meeple Minded, and I will see you on the next one.